Welcome to our channel, Love Fails. And today we are going to talk about the story of Michael and Sarah, a couple whose love began like a dream, but slowly turned into a struggle they never expected. Michael first saw Sarah in the library of their college. She was sitting at the far end, her hair tied in a loose bun, a paperback novel in her hand. The way she smiled at the pages, soft, unguarded, was what caught his attention. He had seen beautiful girls before, but Sarah's charm wasn't in how she looked. It was in how she seemed to lose herself in the world she loved. He walked past her table once, then again. Finally, on the third attempt, he stopped. "What are you reading?" he asked, his voice carrying a mix of curiosity and nervousness. Sarah looked up, surprised, her brown eyes locking onto his. "It's Pride and Prejudice. Ever heard of it?" Michael grinned. "Heard of it, yes. Read it, no. But I'm an architect major, so maybe you'll forgive me for not being much of a reader." Her lips curved into a small smile. "Maybe, if you promise not to ruin the ending." He chuckled. "Deal." That was their beginning. What followed was weeks of shared coffee breaks, walks across campus, and endless conversations about everything from books to buildings, from dreams to fears. Sarah loved how Michael listened, really listened when she talked. Michael loved how Sarah made him laugh, even when his assignments piled up and the deadlines crushed him. Their first kiss was outside the old cafe near campus, under fairy lights strung above the doorway. It was raining lightly, and Sarah had been complaining about her soaked shoes. Michael leaned in, cutting her sentence short, and kissed her. She pulled back, shocked for half a second, then laughed before kissing him again. By the time they graduated, they were inseparable. Everyone said they were the kind of couple that would last. After graduation, life got real. Michael was hired at a well-known architecture firm in the city, a dream come true, but also a heavy responsibility. Sarah landed a job at a small publishing house, editing manuscripts and organizing book events. They decided to move in together into a modest apartment, 2 bedrooms, a small balcony, and just enough space for dreams. At first, it was perfect. They decorated the place together, arguing over colors and furniture in ways that made them laugh more than fight. Sarah painted the walls a soft cream, while Michael insisted on keeping his old, slightly broken desk because "this desk has seen my best sketches." She filled the shelves with books. He placed his architectural models on the counter. Every night, they'd cook together, even if it meant burning pasta or fighting over too much salt in the soup. They'd sit on the balcony with cheap wine and talk about the future, about the house they'd one day buy, about maybe having kids, about traveling the world together. But slowly, things began to change. Michael's firm demanded longer hours than he had expected. He often came home after 10 or 11 p.m., exhausted, his mind still tangled in projects and deadlines. Sarah, whose job ended at 6, would spend her evenings waiting, cooking, or sometimes just sitting with a book, glancing at the clock every few minutes. At first, she didn't complain. She understood. She told herself, "He's building a career. This is just a phase." But as weeks turned into months, the loneliness started to bite. One Friday night, she cooked his favorite dinner, roast chicken with mashed potatoes, and waited. By 11 p.m., the food was cold, and she was curled up on the couch, scrolling through her phone. When Michael finally walked in, loosened tie, tired eyes, she looked up. "You didn't even call," she said softly. He froze, sensing the disappointment in her tone. "I'm sorry, Sarah. The client meeting went on forever. I couldn't step away." "You couldn't send one text?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I didn't think it mattered. You know how it is." Her eyes filled with tears she tried to hide. "It does matter. It always matters." He wanted to hug her, to say he was sorry again, but instead,
He set his bag down and went straight to the shower. That night, Sarah lay awake, staring at the ceiling, while Michael slept beside her. She wondered if this was the same man who once promised he'd never let her feel alone. The fights began small but frequent. One evening, Michael came home to find Sarah sitting at the dining table, a pile of bills spread in front of her. "We need to talk about money," she said without looking up. Michael groaned, tossing his jacket on the couch. "Not tonight, Sarah. I've had a long day." "It's always not tonight, Michael, but these bills don't wait." He sat down heavily. "What's the problem?" She held up the credit card statement. "You're spending on things we don't need. Dinners with clients, new suits. And I bought curtains last week, $200, and you freaked out about it. But you can spend twice that on work dinners?" Michael's jaw tightened. "Those dinners are investments, Sarah. They keep me in the loop. They help my career. Curtains don't." Her face hardened. "Maybe if you spent half as much energy on us as you do on your career, we wouldn't be sitting here like strangers." His hands curled into fists. "I'm doing all this for us. Don't you get that?" She shook her head, her voice breaking. "I don't need a future if it means losing my present with you." The words hung in the room, sharp and immovable. Neither spoke for a long time. Things grew colder after that. Michael started working even later, sometimes crashing at the office. Sarah threw herself into her job, attending more events, staying out with her colleagues, sometimes not returning until late. Each of them hoped the other would notice, would fight, would care enough to stop them. One Saturday, Sarah suggested they go out for dinner, just the two of them. Michael reluctantly agreed, but halfway through, his phone buzzed. He excused himself to take a call, stepping outside. 15 minutes passed, then 20. Sarah sat alone at the table, her food untouched, staring at the empty chair across from her. When he finally returned, she looked at him with hollow eyes. "Do you even want to be here?" she asked quietly. Michael blinked. "Of course I do. Why would you say that?" "Because it feels like I'm eating with your shadow." The restaurant noise buzzed around them, but between them was only silence. When they returned home, Sarah broke down. "I can't keep living like this," she sobbed. "I miss you, Michael. I miss us." Michael stood there, torn between guilt and defensiveness. He reached out to touch her shoulder, but she pulled away. For the first time, he realized the gap between them wasn't temporary, but was growing into a canyon. That night, they slept on opposite sides of the bed, backs turned, the warmth of their love replaced by the cold weight of distance. And though neither said it aloud, both wondered the same thing. Was their love enough to survive what was coming?
Michael sat in his car outside their apartment for almost 15 minutes before finally stepping out. He had driven home in silence, his hands tight on the steering wheel, his mind replaying Sarah's last words from the morning. "You don't even see me anymore." It echoed in his head like a stubborn song. He wanted to believe she was wrong, but somewhere deep inside, he knew she wasn't. When he entered the apartment, the lights were on, but the living room felt strangely empty. Sarah was curled up on the couch, her legs pulled close to her chest, her face half hidden behind her knees. She looked up briefly when the door clicked, then quickly turned her eyes back to the muted TV screen. Michael set his bag down and cleared his throat. "I'm home." No answer, just the faint sound of a comedy show laugh track filling the silence. He tried again, softer. "Sarah?" Finally, she glanced at him. "Yeah." Her tone was flat, distant, like she was speaking to a stranger. He walked over slowly, hesitated for a moment, then sat at the edge of the couch. "Can we talk?" Her lips pressed together, eyes glassy. "Talk? Now you want to talk?" "Yes." His voice cracked more than he wanted it to. "I know I've been absent."
She cut him off sharply. Cold? Detached? Michael's jaw tightened. Working. I've been working, Sarah. For us. Her eyes finally met his, burning with frustration. Don't you get it? I never asked for late nights and expensive plans we might have someday. I just wanted you. Here. With me. Laughing with me. Fighting with me. Living with me. Not just existing beside me. He leaned forward, running his hands through his hair. I don't know how to fix this. I'm trying, Sarah. I really am. You don't even notice the little things anymore. Last week I got my hair cut. Did you see? Or when I stayed up all night editing that manuscript because I was so stressed, did you ask me how it went? No, because you weren't here. You never are. Michael's heart ached hearing her voice break. He reached for her hand, but she pulled it back like his touch burned. The rejection stung more than he expected. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The TV kept playing its meaningless noise. Finally, Sarah stood up and walked to the kitchen, opening a cabinet just to keep her hands busy. I can't keep doing this, feeling invisible, waiting for scraps of your time, pretending everything's fine when it's not. Michael followed her, his tone desperate. So what do you want me to do? Quit my job? Throw away everything I've been building? No, she said firmly, spinning around to face him. I want you to see me, to choose me even when you're tired, to remember that I exist outside of the bills and the rent and your deadlines. I want to feel like your partner again, not your roommate. The word roommate hit him like a punch in the gut. He stepped closer. Sarah, I love you. I never stopped. She dropped to a whisper. Then why don't I feel it anymore? That night, they went to bed without touching. Sarah lay on her side, facing away from him, tears slipping silently onto her pillow. Michael lay awake staring at the ceiling, guilt gnawing at him, wondering how something once so simple had become so heavy. The next few weeks did not bring relief. They tried, in their own ways. Michael started coming home earlier a few nights a week. Sarah tried to smile more, tried to believe his effort meant things were changing, but it was like putting tape on a cracking dam. One evening, Sarah suggested they go out for dinner, just the two of them. No phones, no work talk. Michael agreed, and she lit up with a hopeful smile. They chose a little Italian restaurant where they had once celebrated their anniversary. For a while, it felt like old times, the candlelight flickering between them, the smell of garlic bread in the air. Sarah laughed at one of Michael's stories from work, and for the first time in weeks, his heart lifted. But then his phone buzzed. He ignored it at first, but then it buzzed again and again. Finally, with a mumbled, "Sorry," he glanced at it. Work email. Urgent. His eyes scanned it for just a few seconds, but when he looked up, Sarah's smile was gone. "You couldn't even give me one night?" she said quietly, pushing her plate away. "Sarah, it's always just 5 minutes, just one email, just one more deadline, and suddenly I'm the extra in my own marriage." The fight spilled out right there, low voices hissing across the candlelit table. Other diners glanced at them awkwardly, but they didn't care. By the time they left, the silence between them was colder than the night air. Back at home, Michael tried again. He reached for her hand, pleading, "Don't give up on us." Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice was steady. "I'm not giving up. I'm just tired of begging for a place in your life." He wanted to argue, to explain, but the words died in his throat. All he could do was watch as Sarah walked into the bedroom and closed the door, leaving him alone in the living room with the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on his chest. And for the first time, Michael wondered if love itself was enough to keep them from falling apart. The next morning,
Michael woke to the sound of the shower running. Sarah was already up, her side of the bed cold and empty. He stared at the ceiling for a long time before dragging himself out of bed. The apartment felt foreign to him now, like he was walking through someone else's life. When Sarah stepped out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, their eyes met briefly. There was no hostility, but no warmth either. Just a heavy, suffocating distance. "Morning," Michael said quietly. "Morning," she replied, her voice clipped as she brushed past him toward the closet. He wanted to reach out, to hold her, to bridge the growing chasm between them, but he froze, afraid she'd recoil again. Instead, he busied himself with making coffee. When Sarah finally sat down at the table, dressed and ready for work, the silence stretched like a wall between them. Michael cleared his throat. Maybe we could go somewhere this weekend. Just us. No phones, no work." Sarah stirred her coffee, staring into the swirling liquid. "I don't know, Michael. Every time we try, something ruins it, and I can't keep setting myself up for disappointment." His chest tightened. "Please, just give me one more chance." Her lips trembled, but she didn't answer. She grabbed her bag and left for work, leaving him alone with the bitter taste of coffee and regret. At the office, Michael found it impossible to focus. His colleagues joked around him, but he barely registered their words. All he could think about was Sarah's hollow eyes, the way her laughter had disappeared from their home. That night, he cooked dinner, her favorite, pasta with creamy mushroom sauce. He set the table, lit a candle, even put on soft music. When Sarah walked in, she looked surprised. "You did all this?" she asked softly. I nodded. I wanted to. For a brief moment, something flickered in her eyes, a trace of the woman who used to melt at his smallest gestures. They ate together, and for once, the conversation was light. Sarah laughed once, and it was like music to him. But when the plates were cleared, reality crept back in. She sat across from him, her hands folded. "Michael, I don't know if this is enough anymore." His heart sank. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she whispered, struggling to hold his gaze, "I'm exhausted. I don't know if love alone can fix what's broken." He reached across the table, taking her hand in both of his. "Don't say that. Don't give up on us. I'll do better, I swear." Her tears slipped down her cheeks. "I want to believe you, God. I do. But I've been waiting for so long. And every time you promise, it feels like it slips away again." Michael felt a lump in his throat. "Then tell me what to do. Anything, I'll do it." She shook her head slowly. "I don't think it's about one thing you can do. It's about years of feeling unseen. I'm scared it's too late." That night, Sarah slept in the bed, while Michael sat on the couch, unable to close his eyes. He thought about the first time he met her, the way her laughter filled the air, how they couldn't stop talking for hours. He thought about their wedding day, how radiant she looked, how certain he felt that nothing could ever tear them apart. And now, here they were, strangers, sharing a roof. The following days blurred into one another. They spoke less and less, words replaced by silence and avoidance. Sarah worked late, sometimes not even coming home until after midnight. Michael found himself waiting by the window, watching headlights pass, wondering which one would be hers. One Friday evening, Sarah came home later than usual. Her hair was tousled from the wind, her cheeks flushed. Michael stood up immediately. "Where were you?" His tone came out harsher than intended. She dropped her keys on the table, sighing. "I told you, I was with Emily. We grabbed dinner." Michael's chest burned with suspicion. "You didn't answer my calls." "My phone died," she snapped, kicking off her shoes. "Do I need to report every single move to you now?" He clenched his fists. "No, but you could at least act like you care that I'm here waiting for you." She spun around,
eyes blazing. "Waiting? You? You spent years making me feel like the loneliest woman alive, and now that I finally step outside, you act jealous?" The words hit like daggers. He stared at her, speechless. "I'm tired, Michael. I don't want to fight anymore. I don't want to beg anymore. I don't even know if I want this marriage anymore." Michael's knees felt weak, his breath shallow. "Sarah, please." But she just turned away, retreating into the bedroom, leaving him standing in the living room with his world crashing down around him. And in that silence, Michael realized something terrifying. He might have already lost her.
Michael sat at the kitchen table long after Sarah closed the bedroom door. The apartment was dim, the only light coming from the street lamps outside. He stared at the half-empty glass of water in front of him, replaying her words again and again. "I don't even know if I want this marriage anymore." The sentence looped in his head like a curse. He rubbed his face with both hands, fighting the heaviness pressing against his chest. For the first time since they had met, he truly wondered if love alone was not enough. The next morning, Sarah emerged from the bedroom dressed in jeans and a sweater, her bag slung across her shoulder. She looked determined, calmer than the night before. "Where are you going?" Michael asked, his voice raw. "I'm staying with my sister for a few days," she said without hesitation. "I need space. We both do." Michael stood quickly, panic tightening his throat. "Sarah, please, don't do this. We can work through it." She met his eyes, and there was no anger, only exhaustion. "I can't breathe in here anymore, Michael. Every room feels like a battlefield. I need to step away before I drown." He tried to move closer, but she raised her hand, stopping him. "Don't make this harder, please." Michael's arms dropped to his sides. He wanted to scream, to fight, to beg, but the weight in Sarah's voice silenced him. She picked up her suitcase from near the door, paused for just a second as though expecting him to stop her, and then walked out. The sound of the door closing echoed like thunder in his chest. That night, Michael wandered the apartment aimlessly. The couch still carried Sarah's scent. Her toothbrush sat next to his in the bathroom. A pair of her earrings lay forgotten on the nightstand. The absence of her presence made the home feel cavernous, haunted. He sat on their bed, clutching her pillow, and whispered into the darkness, "Don't leave me." But the silence swallowed his plea whole. The next week, Michael called and texted her repeatedly. Sometimes she responded briefly, politely, like speaking to a colleague. Other times she ignored him altogether. Every unanswered message felt like a nail hammered into the coffin of their marriage. On Friday evening, desperate for answers, he drove to her sister's house. Sarah opened the door, surprised but not angry. She stepped outside, closing the door gently behind her. "Where are you going?" Michael asked, his voice raw. "I'm staying with my sister for a few days," she said without hesitation. "I need space. We both do." Michael stood quickly, panic tightening his throat. "Sarah, please, don't do this. We can work through it." She met his eyes, and there was no anger, only exhaustion. "I can't breathe in here anymore, Michael. Every room feels like a battlefield. I need to step away before I drown." He tried to move closer, but she raised her hand, stopping him. "Don't make this harder, please." Michael's arms dropped to his sides. He wanted to scream, to fight, to beg, but the weight in Sarah's voice silenced him. She picked up her suitcase from near the door, paused for just a second as though expecting him to stop her, and then walked out. That weekend, Sarah came by the apartment to collect some of her things. Michael tried to stay composed, but when he saw her folding clothes into a suitcase, something inside him shattered. "Is this it?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "I don't know if I ever stop loving you, Michael, but love isn't enough anymore."
He reached out, touching her arm, desperate to hold on to the last threads of their life. It has to be, it has to. But Sarah turned slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks, and shook her head. And in that moment, Michael realized she was already gone.
The apartment felt like a hollow shell after Sarah left with her suitcase. Michael sat on the couch, staring at the blank television screen. Hours blurred into days and days into weeks. He tried to keep busy with work, but everything reminded him of her. The songs she loved playing softly in cafes, the scent of her shampoo lingering in the bathroom, the dent in the pillow where she used to sleep. He started writing unsent letters late at night, pouring his heart onto paper he never mailed. Dear Sarah, I'm sorry I didn't listen when you begged me to slow down. I'm sorry I chose silence over understanding. I'm sorry I loved you in the wrong ways. Each letter ended the same. Please, come back. Sarah, meanwhile, sat in her sister's spare room surrounded by boxes of her belongings. She scrolled through her phone late into the night, sometimes hovering over Michael's contact. She thought about calling him, but fear gripped her each time. Fear of falling back into the same cycle. Fear of losing herself all over again. Her sister Rachel eventually sat her down one evening. You still love him, don't you? Sarah looked at her hands, twisting the edge of a blanket. I do, but love feels like a chain now. Every time I think of going back, I remember the fights, the cold silences. I can't breathe like that anymore. Rachel squeezed her hand. Then you need to choose peace, even if it breaks your heart. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. How do you walk away from the person you thought you'd spend forever with? Rachel whispered, by remembering that forever shouldn't hurt this much. A month passed before they agreed to meet. The cafe where they first went on a date now felt like neutral ground, stripped of romance and filled instead with unspoken tension. Michael arrived early, his palms sweaty, rehearsing every word he wanted to say. When Sarah walked in, he stood immediately. She looked beautiful in her simplicity, her hair tied back, her face calm but unreadable. They sat across from each other. For a while, neither spoke. Finally, Michael broke the silence. I still love you. Sarah's eyes softened, but she didn't smile. I know you do. I love you too. Then why are we here talking about ending us? He asked, his voice breaking. Because love stopped being safe for me, Michael, she replied quietly. It started feeling like a war zone, and I can't keep living in battle mode. He leaned forward desperately. We can fix this. Therapy, moving, changing jobs, anything. Just don't give up on us. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. I already gave everything I had to give. My heart is empty, Michael. The silence that followed was suffocating. Michael reached across the table, but Sarah pulled her hands into her lap. Not out of anger, but out of resignation. 2 weeks later, the divorce papers arrived. Michael stared at them for hours before finally signing. His hand shook as the pen scratched across the paper, finalizing the end of their story. When Sarah received her copy, she cried harder than she had the night she left. She didn't cry because she didn't want it. She cried because she had wanted their forever so badly, and forever had slipped through her fingers. Months later, Michael still carried a ghost of Sarah with him. Sometimes he thought he saw her on the street, only to realize it was a stranger. Sometimes he dreamed of her laughter, waking up with tears on his cheeks. Sarah, too, thought of him often, when she saw couples holding hands, when she walked past their favorite restaurant, when she heard the song they used to dance to in the kitchen. Neither of them stopped loving the other, but sometimes love isn't enough to survive the storms it creates. And so their story ended not with hatred, but with the quiet tragedy of two hearts that loved fiercely, yet could not find a way to beat in harmony. Their marriage didn't end because of lack of love. It ended because even love,
when left unprotected, can wither away under the weight of silence, pride, and pain.